Alright, time for class, everyone! Is everyone seated? I hope so. Alright, so this is Cuteness Class Unit 1. What is cute? Where does it come from? And what is its use? Before we start, of course, like I promised, we're going to do some vocal warm-ups. Ahem. Whew. Now that was an interesting exercise. Also, even though, like I said, it can cause dysphoria to be so aware of your throat placement, that is also going to be a very useful tool for you being able to find your preferred voice in a jiffy. Especially in the sense that maybe you've hit a comfortable lower register. Actually, regardless if you're trans or cis or have a higher or a lower voice, when you're talking with people that you're comfortable with, most people have a subconscious habit for their voice to lower a bit. Sometimes that can be not so fun when you realize that it's happening. However, you can always correct, and people naturally do that. So as long as you don't not pay attention to it, as long as you don't call too much attention to it, someone might not even notice when you adjust. Although the training that I'm trying to help with isn't necessarily in a quick way to do it in public. Though if you have to be in public and you want to adjust your voice, I recommend stepping out or going to the bathroom really quick if you don't use the potty in your pants for a quick chance to readjust your voice, or doing so before you meet with someone that you want to use. However, also be aware that if you're talking to someone online using a mic of any sort, or you're talking on the phone, your voice is going to sound different than it's going to sound if someone were in person. So if you feel like you've hit a voice that you like, but you're still not passing, for example, that doesn't mean that you're failing at what your motives are. It might just mean that because of technology and because of the societal expectations of what a mask or femme voice sounds like to whoever you're talking to, you may just be shit out of luck and that person may just see you as a gender that you aren't. And that sucks. But keep those things in mind, okay? It's called a larynx. And I have a pretty shallow larynx. Larynx. Can you say larynx? Larynx. Even if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Add Bob's Burgers to the list of characters you can do. Oh, you mean like Bob from Bob's Burgers? Oh, cool. Gosh, I should totally do some Bob's Burgers stuff. I heard the Bob's Burgers movie just came out. That sounds really cool. Let's start class officially. That was our bell ringer. Alright. Who am I? In case you're new or watching this for the first time, I'm Drizzle. My pronouns are they, she, they, and it. I'm a VTuber, baby fur. I'm non-binary. I'm black as hell. And I'm part of a plural system. VTuber as in I use a virtual model to represent myself online in content and even outside of content. I'm a baby fur, as in I am a furry who is also an age player / age worker, meaning that I age regress, sometimes on purpose, sometimes passively. I'm very kink positive, and so is my headmate's content. I'm non-binary, meaning that I don't fit neatly into a mask or femme framework for gender. I kind of have been still experimenting with what my gender is in a specific way, because although it is totally valid to just default to non-binary, whether or not that means for you androgynous, whether or not that means anything under the rainbow that's not binary, mask, or femme, it is a big deal for me to find a, I guess, micro label that explains me a lot. You might notice in my pronouns, I put Faye first. I used to default to she first, and she is still very euphoric for me. And I definitely have a sort of femme presentation. But I'm not necessarily high femme. I guess I think in sort of a style sense, I would consider myself a teeny bopper, which honestly I could do a whole fucking lesson on, honestly. Um, but I like a semi old school and soft pastel aesthetic, and that does not necessarily always include, or often does not include, stuff that's high femme or even like moderately femme in the sense of dresses. Short alls and shorts and that sort of stuff, essentially play clothes, are kind of my favorite aesthetic. I'm black. I am POC, or at least our body is. I highly identify with being black, although I've been charting my own course with gender and presentation and the way I live my life for a very long time, and only in the last few years have really sunk in and been comfortable with who I am, and not necessarily always feeling like I am not being black enough because of not falling into stereotypes or typical quote unquote black behavior or interests. I've always been very into anime. I've always been very into a lot of things that growing up, at least in the 90s and early 2000s, wasn't as welcome in the black community, or at least the black community that I had locally and within my family, as something that was exoticism and trying to basically escape my own racial reality. I think that specifically for all these labels, they all have an impact on my own view of, and I suppose expression of, cuteness and what cuteness means to me as a VTuber. Other than a lot of highly sexualized forms of expression in the VTuber community, on top of that, or as an alternative to that, many VTubers, shit, even horror VTubers, rely on cute behavior or cute aestheticism to drive home their expression and to gain attention. And I am no different. As a baby fur, I definitely enjoy things that are, at least for someone approaching physically 30, stuff that is not necessarily seen as age appropriate for behavior or interests. Of course, stuff like video games and cartoons should be okay for any age level. The amount of comfort and security I get from those things and from soft and cute, say, clothing and textures and stuff definitely has a big effect on how I see myself. Although baby fur and ABDL is for plenty of people a kink thing, is definitely a lifestyle thing and definitely a subculture for me and many others. I literally wore short alls and a onesie when I went outside today. I very much enjoy dressing cute and being seen as cute. For those reasons, as a non-binary person charting my own gender that isn't strictly femme, has been quite difficult, because in terms of she, they, trans people, or trans femmes, or any sort of femme aligned trans person, and those labels are very popular right now because a lot of people are discovering that being binary isn't for them, but they do want to be seen as feminine, and they definitely want to be in a more feminine social role, even though people like me are still trying to kind of chart their own social roles that aren't completely in the binary sense and not completely in an androgynous or in a gender nebulous sense, is still quite difficult. But I know for a fact that regardless of my presentation and my behavior and what that may change, I definitely want to continue being cute and being seen as cute. It is definitely part of my gender journey. You may know some people who shorten non-binary to MB, or even say something very cute to the effect of non-binary. Some people who are non-binary do not like this association. Some people, especially of a more mass presentation, do not like the cutification of the word non-binary. Although I think the word MB has been seen as pretty inoffensive to more mask-aligned non-binary people. You shouldn't automatically assume. So if you do meet a non-binary person in the wild and they ask you not to call them an MB, please understand that that may be the position they're coming from. Although, honestly, regardless of the position they're coming from, call people the fuck what they want to be called. Right. I'm part of a plural system. I have to share a body. I also share a body with masked people. And although a lot of us definitely scale cute, even though we don't necessarily scale femme, it is very important for us to all find our own place within the system and generally find a presentation and expression that feels right for us. And sharing that space can be rather hard because when you're a singlet and you decide, okay, I'm a she, they, it, they, dragon, baby fur VTuber who's black, like, I can literally just sit in the aesthetic that I have and not have to worry about it. But in terms of clothes, in terms of the friends we make and how we talk to people, we do have to juggle what people expect from us. If I wear certain clothes around my house, my roommates, or specifically my partner, will probably assume that I'm fronting. And there are certain clothes that they'll assume that someone else is fronting. For example, my headmate and partner, Punkbite, really loves a very pocket-filled, like, all-black vest. It's very punky. It's kind of goth. If anyone ever sees us walking around the house with it, they might assume that Punk is fronting. It is not cute per se, but we'll get into some of the more nebulous constrictions and expressions of cute, not just today, but in the class in general. I didn't expect to spend so much time on this slide. This is gonna take a long time, huh? Trigger warnings! Racism, fascism, mention of current events. Those things will scale towards the end of the presentation, but do be aware that they will come up. I would feel remiss if I did not mention trigger warnings at all, because as much as I would love to be like, surprise, bitch, it's not fair to anyone watching, and it feels weirder to do for a live stream than it would be for a video essay, because in a scripted video essay, I'm generally just gonna start the video off with those. Although we do add trigger warnings at the beginning of stream, I wanted to make sure that anyone tuning in now or watching the VOD in general, when we cut it down, will know that these trigger warnings exist and they should be aware of them. So if you want to protect yourself for the VOD, or at least for the edited VOD, a time should be displayed on screen right now that tells you when you should be aware that those triggers will come up. It's not going to be in the next slide or anything, so it's going to be way further down. And you may ask yourself, Drizzle, why the fuck do these things have to come up with cuteness? Well, if you don't know, we're also radical leftists, and we really crave intersectionalism in the content that we create, because kind of like, be the change you want to see in the world, I make content that I would like to see, and a lot of things are intersectional. And unfortunately, this is not just a class on how to be cute and get people to, like, treat you infantile like, or like cute boy or cute girl or cute MB. This is hopefully a comprehensive course, not just on the ways that you can become cute if you don't feel like you can be cute, but also to understand where cuteness comes from a more scholarly perspective. I recently realized that video essay work is a extension of things that we always have loved and wanted to do for a very long time. At first, the equivalent to it for us was when we were a Christian in church. Not anymore. Growing up, we desperately wanted to get to church early so that we could hear the pastor give his sermon. That was our favorite part of church, because we love being talked at and taught certain things, and being able to go back into scripture or going into the research or the cited works of a video essayist always is nice. Having extended reading is great, and and not having to just take someone's word for the stuff they're saying, even if I do feel enriched by it, is also awesome. The end of this the end of this presentation will also have our work cited. They're all from Wikipedia. But hey, I'm not in college anymore, so I can have any fucking sources I want. That being said, let's continue. So you're gonna learn how to be cute. This class is for anyone who wants to be more cute, whether that be aesthetically or behaviorally. Gender does not matter. This is not a self-help course, or at least that's not the intent. I am not a guru or an expert. This class is taught from a perspective of lived experience and research. This class is not end-all be-all. I encourage you to take what you think is useful and leave the rest. Like I would say you should do with any creator. And unfortunately, unlike a TF, it's not gonna happen overnight. However, that cartridge is yours. That's not this class, it's the tools that you learn and what you use. How to Be Cute Training Course Unit 1. What is cute? Where does it come from? What is its use? What is cute? The Oxford Dictionary defines cute as attractive in a pretty or endearing way. Clever or cunning, especially in a self-seeking or superficial way. Although I will be, at least for today, focusing in on that first definition, be aware that in the future I will be going towards that second definition, especially in terms of cute's usefulness. You may have heard cute being used as a pejorative for clever or coy behavior, and especially in, I guess, gamer circles. For example, when I used to play Halo with the bros, if I were to do something that was more underhanded and more, in my view, tactical in my gaming, not getting up in their face and shooting, but hiding, doing hide and seek tactics, going to higher vantage points, sniping, or as some might say, camping, I was sometimes called cute, but not in a fun way. Not in a fun way. You may hear someone be like, oh, you thought that was cute, as a way to, I don't know, just make you feel shitty about what you've done. Going back to my experience as a black person, being cute is, even for femmes, isn't necessarily always a positive thing. And especially as a black trans person, I have always struggled with being not just seen as more feminine, even when I'm trying my hardest, but also being seen as cute, because black people in general are automatically seen in society, or at least American cishet colonial society, as more masculine in general. You may have seen, and maybe you haven't, I'm glad if you haven't, seen some very racist comments about past First Lady Michelle Obama, saying stuff like, because she has muscles, she's more manly. And of course, even outside of race things, you may have seen people saying that people who are femme in a work environment are being more like a man, or tapping into their masculine side, which is unfortunately a lot of the ways that the society we find ourselves operating in tends to classify people. People who are cute are not seen as being able to do for themselves, or being able to be assertive, for example. You can see some of the similar words for cute are endearing, adorable, lovable, sweet, lovely, appealing. None of these words have generally anything to do with being able to demand respect. And that is something we will actually go into a little bit more. Do you not like the word camping? It feels pretty pejorative. I'm not a big fan of the word camping. I'm okay with its use, but it's definitely been used in my experience in a way that I'm not super fun with. I interchange cool and cute too. There'll definitely be a lesson on that. You can be cute and cool at the same time, though some people think of cool as a more masculine, or I suppose a sharper edge, aesthetic, especially. I would say in a way contrasting cute. I suppose in a general sense, cute is often seen as endearing, whereas cool is seen as more distancing. Someone who is endearing can be more sympathetic or empathetic, or someone you can empathize with more. Someone who's cool is generally seen as someone who is more aloof and more put on a pedestal, although cute people can also be put on a pedestal. Cute socially. Cute is a flexible term denoting an endearing form of attractiveness, most commonly associated with youth, softness, or femininity, at least historically. Despite its associations, adults, non-femmes, and even bodybuilders may desire to see themselves as and be seen as cute. Cuteness can be naturally occurring, but for many it comes from practice and labor of some sort. Just like art, being cute can be an effort one puts in. For example, the voice training we did at the beginning. It's not just necessarily about being seen as masculine or feminine for a lot of people. A lot of trans femmes will definitely say that they want to be seen as cute. They want to be seen as soft. People who are femme don't always fall into soft and cute categories. You may know that tomboys exist, or butch people exist. And you can be butch without necessarily being a lesbian, but butch is definitely like a lesbian thing. When I think butch, I think lesbians first and foremost. Sorry, straight butch people, but you are valid. I don't know if any straight butch people would ever watch this or come across this, but just in case, you know, validity and all that. Cute socially continued. Cuteness is seen as the aesthetic of the carefree, and folks with it are seen as naive or innocent and overwhelmingly happy, which is exacerbated by the association with helplessness. Remember, the history of the term cute is very much sequestered in an expression of being a baby, being small, helpless. Even outside of, let's say, H-play and other similar cute associated subcultures, being seen as cute or saying, for example, I'm baby, usually is denoting a sense of not being able to do something or being very simple in your desires. Is seen as something to be very innocent. Someone saying I'm baby, which is a meme now, can easily be exchanged with the term I'm cute. Cuteness, however, is a desirable trait, as for many it's seen as a passive way to convince others to pamper or listen to you. Although a lot of people are infantilized who are cute, whether or not they work for it or not, and actually a lot of people who haven't had to work to be seen as cute tend to have not as positive a relationship to the word cute, especially because of certain signifiers or, I guess, characteristics that are seen primarily in cute people or have an association with cuteness as being, I suppose, automatic. A lot of short people don't like to be referred to as cute. Plenty of femme people don't like being seen as cute, especially if they have a more masked presentation or they have a less soft attitude about things. There are plenty of people who, on the opposite side, like I mentioned in the last slide about bodybuilders, there are plenty of bodybuilders who want to be seen as cute. Just because there are general characteristics that are seen as associative with cute does not mean they always should be associated with cute. So before you, I guess, slot someone in the cute category in your head, do recognize that they might not agree with how you're categorizing them. Cuteness is desirable in partners, creators, or art, as it's recognized as something that improves the mood or raises the spirit. Just because you don't see yourself as cute or don't want to be seen as cute doesn't mean that cuteness isn't important in your life. There's no end for my hate for this place. Cuteness is something that a lot of people desire for comfort. Even if they don't want to be cute at all, they might covet cuteness as a way for comfort. This is actually a reason why a lot of cute-ass VTubers are very popular. because no matter what walk of life you come from, some people just want to experience cute. That was that whole slide. Fun fact, i.e. boring etymology, cute is a shortening of acute, from a phrase similar to looking sharp as in having good looks. Rare. I wanted to go into etymology, but I felt that I should save that for a different lesson. But thank you. So this is a big crux of our lesson today. Although cuteness socially is generally what we're going to be talking about for most of these lessons, it is important to understand where cute comes from scientifically, at least for my purposes, because especially thinking about the things that are generally seen as cute, it is not an accident that short, chubby, or high-pitched voiced people or characters are generally slotted into a cute category. Cuteness is a subjective term describing attractiveness commonly associated with youth and appearance. It has a cultural context, but has a scientific one as well, as explored by the Austrian zoologist and ethologists Konrad Lorenz, most active in the 1930s and 40s, who is a leading expert on the topic of imprinting. Imprinting is what you may see with, most notably even for Lorenz's work, baby ducks or other small animals automatically associating the first moving thing or organism that they see upon hatching or birthing as their parental figure. Although someone being seen as cute has very little to do with imprinting, imprinting is I won't call it a biological imperative, but it is something that has persisted in biological organisms to keep them alive, because seeking the protection when you are too weak to protect or care for yourself of something bigger or more capable than you is generally the best way to survive. In babies, although imprinting is not necessarily what's going on, crying for attention, whether or not you've soiled yourself, whether or not you're hungry, is generally the only way that you can communicate. And so not only that, but you may have heard that there is parent and child bonding, especially between a baby and its mother. This is also something hardwired into a lot of organisms in a survival sense, and keeping offspring alive long enough for them to reproduce, obviously, or at the very least make it to maturity. Lorenz paved the way in understanding animal behavior and argued that animals have an inner drive to carry out instinctive behaviors, and if they don't find the correct subject to direct that behavior at, that they will direct it at an inappropriate subject. So it is actually a stereotype in especially cartoons where someone may be imprinted on and someone will say something akin to,
I think they're following me.
Haha, dude, they imprinted on you.
What?
Haha, they did. They totally think you're their mom.
Stop it!
you're my mommy. Or they see you as their mother, which in terms of imprinting would not be wrong at all. Obviously, the most appropriate, quote unquote, imprinting subject would be the actual parent or mother of whatever organism is doing the imprinting. Very often, that is not necessarily the case, as we'll talk about a little bit later as well. Lorenz theorized infantile features trigger nurturing responses in adults, but this may be an underestimation of their effect, as even children sometimes want to be caregivers to dolls and small animals. There was always a big market for dolls, normally directed at little girls, where they get to care for essentially babies, sometimes not even that many years younger than themselves. From a social learning perspective, obviously people saw that as important, as its early behavioral education on a more adult social role. Housekeeping and taking care of children have been seen as primarily duties of women for a very long time. Although obviously that's bullshit. And of course, learning the responsibility of taking care of another organism when you're young is something that is generally, regardless of gender, is something that is seen as something that has a lot of weight and is something important to learn. Many people will say of children who want a puppy, for example, that's a lot of responsibility. Are you sure you want to take this? And any adults who are in my audience, as you all should be, at least physically, taking care of an animal is a lot of hard work, and especially a lot of poor people tend to be a little scared to take care of an animal because they realize it is a lot of responsibility. I once knew someone who was very poor who generally did not eat a lot of the time so that her dog could eat. And although it is important to take care of your charge that cannot take care of themselves, it is sometimes irresponsible to try to take care of an animal when you cannot take care of yourself. Which is why when you're growing up and you are charged with or are asking for taking care of a small animal and you were denied that responsibility, sometimes it wasn't necessarily to bar you from happiness, but because generally if you are failing at that, your parent does have to, or a caregiver does have to pick up the pace and take care of that animal for you. Moreover, I'd assert that harming creatures with cute features is harder for humans at the very least, especially because of the infantile features and the softer and more rounded features of infantile organisms, or organisms that have infantile features, not just say children. A lot of people say dogs and cats are cute. I find ferrets quite fucking cute. Generally, people flock to want to take care of things with said features, especially features like bigger eyes. Bigger eyes may denote younger characters, but a lot of times it also, or alternatively, denotes a specific style of characters. And the super deformed character style, or any sort of cute or moe character style, definitely scales more towards bigger eyes, rounder features, and of course, bigger heads. The proliferation of moe in anime is an example of the power of cuteness to elicit certain responses. The bedrock of moe is not just cuteness in and of itself, but to comfort the viewer with cute characters doing cute things, especially cute characters that you might want to protect. Moe and horradorablility. Horradorablility is the word that I came up with that combines horror and adorability, or horror and cuteness, because I believe just like something that is salty and sweet elevates both flavors, something that has horror elements and has cute elements can do the same thing. When you see someone or something that you see as cute being hurt, just like I said, it's harder to bring yourself to hurt something that you do see as cute. Seeing something that is cute being destroyed or harmed can elicit a much stronger negative response in you than it would otherwise, which is honestly why certain people find it very taboo to have, say, children displayed in horror media, especially if they're going to be killed. I remember actually specifically for the movie Terror Planet, the director actually had his son in the movie, but did scenes in which his son's character lived so that his son's character would not realize while filming that his character was being killed. And I'm sure the person is of age now, but at the time, I remember the director's commentary for Terror Planet that he had specifically mentioned that he was not going to let his kids see it until much later in life, so it would not scar him for life. But also, there's just the sense that if you are young, you should not be exposed to certain horrific things. This also was transplanted to cuteness because there is automatically an association with cuteness and youth. Generally is a biological imperative to protect quote-unquote cute things, but that comes from a biological imperative to protect young things or things that have not reached maturity. Of course, there are in nature plenty of counterexamples, like one of my favorite animals, the Komodo dragon, that literally warms the eggs, but upon hatching, totally abandons its offspring. Moe is an idealized and typically femme-coded art aesthetic, and part of a feel-good genre of manga and anime, favored by proponents who often state that they want to protect its characters, and often express sadness when the characters suffer. Horror that's Moe seems to be very effective because of how the audience is endeared to those characters. Anime and video games such as Higurashi When They Cry has reached cult status partially because of the hyper-violence that befalls its cute cast. Even things that are more contemporary, say the video game Omori, is well known for its childlike and cute aesthetic, but often veers into very, very strong horror vibes. People who may have been aware of Doki Doki Literature Club when it first came out was actually on the news a lot, at least in America, denoting that had a very subversive nature. Some people even thought because of its cute aesthetic, there was actually marketing towards children, even though it actually has a trigger warning that also says that it's for mature audiences only, but does not necessarily go into all the things immediately in its trigger warning so as not to spoil it. But because of the heavy association in society with youth and cuteness, for example, VTubers also, who are, for example, me, have cute avatars, are seen as targeting children, which we are not. Lorenz also states something referring to the hawk-goose effect, which describes the tendency of young birds to cower in response to seeing the shadow of a hawk flying overhead, but not a goose flying overhead, as well as the tendency of young birds to imprint on the first moving object they see after hatching as their caregiver. I don't think it's well known at this point, but it was one of my favorite movies growing up, Fly Away Home, that's actually about a young girl who's the daughter of an inventor who finds a flock of geese or ducks? I'm pretty sure it's geese. A flock of geese that imprint on her. And she wants to help them fly south for the winter so that they do not die. Especially because, taking care of 12 geese is actually like a lot of work. And her dad, being an inventor, actually builds a flying machine for her to actually guide them to where they're supposed to be. This is obviously an example of imprinting on the quote-unquote wrong subject, but because of human ingenuity, sometimes this happens and it can actually lead to okay outcomes. There are sometimes in nature where animals will imprint on a member of a different species as their caregiver, and that caregiver will take care of them. It is not a phenomenon that is unknown, and it doesn't happen all the time, but it does sometimes happen. I think these phenomena are indicative of even young organisms recognizing allies and threats. I'm referring specifically to the hawk-goose effect. Although, as far as I know, in Lorenz's research, he didn't say this explicitly, but I feel that it is implicit that the hawk's features, as opposed to a goose's features, are a hawk has sharper features, right? And a goose has softer features. That goes into what some may say the cool and cute dichotomy. Hawks are cool, hawks are cool, geese are cute, or at least sharp versus soft. And in a general sense, something that is sharp you might not want to touch. Something that is soft is okay to touch, or is seen as something that is not explicitly dangerous, although it can be. In a general sense, some of these signifiers teach us, even as people, what to fear and what not to fear, or at least in a reactive sense, what to watch out for and what not to watch out for. Although we're not necessarily always classifying hawks versus geese as cute, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who find hawks cute, and yes they are, and geese can be totally cool. Just like geese from, I forgot what fighting game it is. But, I know he's not a real geese, but yeah. Or he's not an animal geese. He's as real as he wants to be. Even though this dichotomy isn't one-to-one all the time, I think it is interesting that even young organisms can see something with softer features and go, okay, this is safe, and see something with sharper features and go, oh shit, I should be afraid. It actually is reflective of some of the even social tendencies of people to, say, be afraid of a tall, well-built man when they're walking down the street, and to not fear a petite, small woman or someone that they are assuming is a woman walking down the street. And those general split-second decisions we make about who to fear and who not to fear. Yo, I remember that show. Right, I'm glad. Do you mean Fly Away Home? Or did you mean something else? I've mentioned a lot of stuff today. Kiki and Booba effect. Wow, that snort was not cute. How humans appropriate cute. This is going further into how cuteness is more than a biological function or a biological tool. Because for a long time, humans have done things that are not necessary from a quote-unquote survival perspective. At least not exclusively. Humans often repurpose biological functions for their own purposes, like how contraception allows for casual sex, or how people can cultivate runner's high just for the feeling. If you don't know what runner's high is, after exercising for a long enough amount of time, you can reach an elevated state of consciousness that is very much likened to what you might get when you're on a drug. You get a blast of endorphins, essentially. You don't need to be running to get it. You can get it through almost any sort of exercise. Even sets, is definitely something that a lot of people experience while running. We experience skater's high a lot when we did skate. We hope we can skate again one day. But it is not uncommon for people to achieve runner's high, though runner's high is definitely not necessary for anyone. I'm pretty sure there are plenty of people who have never achieved runner's high and never will. And that's totally okay. The cultivation of cuteness isn't much different from these things. It's not done as a biological imperative for survival like babies are theorized as having, or I guess proven as having, because it is seen, especially through Lorenz's research, as cute features endear someone to their caregivers, making their caregivers more likely to protect them. For people, cuteness is nowadays used for the sake of identity and expression. Even outside of the gender binary, myself, for example, love to be seen as cute, and I definitely see myself as cute. And although in a biological sense, there are certain features that are associated with cute, I tell people quite often when they tell me that they're not fucking cute, because you know what? You're fucking cute. I tell people behavior can make you cute just as much as how you look or how you dress. Obviously, having a cuter voice is totally ooh-woo cute, right? But also there are certain statures and ways of movement, not just ways of acting, that endear you to others in a cute way. For example, being pigeon-toed. I wish I had an example of that. If you've never heard of being pigeon-toed, I think there's probably other ways to phrase it, but it's when you're in a standing position, when your knees are pointed closer towards each other as opposed to like straight ahead. Cuteness is also a tool for many, especially for those marginalized, as those who have a cute aesthetic can elicit protection from others, and, funny fact, are less likely to be brutalized by authoritative forces, especially amongst femme folks. A lot of people might say that conventionally attractive or cute girls, especially girls I should say, have a higher probability of being treated right, or not even right, being treated well in general in society, especially by strangers. I can attest that even before I was trans, even though our body was 6 feet, we're like 5'11" now, even when we were generally seen as tall, lanky black guy, especially because of our attitude and our interests and the way we dressed, we got treated very, very easily like some people tend to treat cute femme people. Although obviously we weren't called, I shouldn't say obviously, but we weren't necessarily called feminine pronouns, but people definitely tried to protect us. And because of the way we acted, we actually at certain points of our life were assumed to be much younger than we were, even before HRT, which plays into the whole dichotomy of cuteness means innocence, innocence and cuteness means this person is younger. And very early on, I recognized that and honed that ability, not just because of my desire to be cute, but because of knowing that I had a lack of ability or quote unquote willingness to protect myself in conventional ways, i.e. being able to fight or being able to peacock in a aggressive way, being able to frighten others away from starting to cause problems with me. Once I realized that people were willing to defend me, especially when I was endeared to them as a cutie, or that people would be less likely to want to fight me or to hurt me because of them seeing me as cute, I honed that ability for protection. So it's not just literal babies that can use cuteness as a way to endear others to them to take care of them. Cuteness can also be wielded to generally be treated well on an individual basis. In a social context, especially in terms of dating, I think a big reason that even outside of gender binary, that a lot of people seem to seek not just cute people to be with if they see themselves as cute or want to be in a more cute and taken care of social role, they might look for people who are harder, who are more aggressive, and who are generally their aesthetic or in a certain way an attitude opposite, not necessarily because they're looking for someone to automatically be their Ben Grimm to their Mr. Fantastic, but because they see being in a social role in which they are protected or seen as the soft one as something that they prefer. I, as an extension of my pan-romanticism / pan-sexuality, am not so specific as I need to have someone cute in my life to take care of when I'm feeling more protective, or seeking someone to be more protective when I'm feeling more cute. I like them all. Cuties, people who don't see them, cuties, coolies, everything in between. But I think an extension of, say, trans femmes, for example, to seek to pass, or at the very least to be seen as cute, or maybe even be seen as femboy as an alternative to being seen as wholly femme, is in a way to be seen as belonging to a social role that should not be feared. Even if it's not, I am scared people will hurt me if they think, or if they see me as masculine, or if they see me as strong, that, oh, if I'm seen as soft, then I will not be feared. For example, the further into transition I got and the more that I was able to fall into the cute social role that I coveted, I was bothered by police less. I was approached more in society. And when talking to strangers, for example, complimenting someone on the clothes they're wearing or their tattoo or their hair, I was much more likely to get a positive response and not be ignored or to be looked at with scrutiny or fear. Unfortunately, that's generally how things are. I have heard trans masculine people talk about how further into transition, people started crossing the street when they saw them, or started to fear their motives. Unfortunately, in a cis-het gender normative society, these roles are important to be aware of, because even for someone non-binary like myself, I still innately fear people who have a more masculine presentation and feel safer around people who have a more feminine presentation. There are outliers, however, but they are outliers that I kind of hone in on for specific reasons. If I see, say, someone who's very masked but has very colorful hair, I might slot them into maybe not necessarily cute, but into an alternative category. Or if I see someone who has like very tattered and ripped clothes and I see as punk and has, say, anti-fascist and anarchist symbols on their clothing, I will generally feel safer around them than someone without those things, because they're also displaying an expression of their ideology that runs contrary to my general taught sense of who I should fear and who I should not fear. Fun that. Cuteness and aesthetic attraction. To clarify, attraction, although often implies sexual attraction, is not, or is often not necessarily concerning it. Asexual people, for example, experience aesthetic attraction, and you watching this, yes you, regardless of being allosexual or not, in all actuality, probably also experience aesthetic attraction. Aesthetic attraction, even for aro-ace people, even for aro-ace people, is something that is commonly experienced, and is not necessarily I think someone is romantically attractive, or I think someone is sexually attractive. It is more, if you ever saw something and said, ooh, that looks cool, that's aesthetic attraction. If you like someone's fit, if you like someone's cosplay, if you like someone's hair color, but in no way you feel a pull towards them in a romantic or sexual way, that's probably aesthetic attraction. And as far as asexual and aro people go, it can be a very hard thing to learn that you're experiencing aesthetic attraction when any sort of attraction is seen as having to slot into sexual or romantic hierarchies. It can be very annoying as shit, at least in my experience. I actually remember being maybe like 15, 16, and having a friend point out people on the street to me and be like, hey, that person's hot, right? That person's hot, right? If they had said that person's cute, I could have easily been like, yes. But because of the relation to hotness and sexual attraction, that was actually the first inklings that I felt in a public sense that my experience with attraction was different than other people's experience with attraction, even as a demisexual person, because I had learned what in society is seen as being physically attractive. A girl or woman in a red dress, high heels, long blonde hair, who is fit and has a symmetrical face is often seen as very attractive. And my friend pointing out someone who ticked all those boxes, it's like, okay, I don't feel any desire to dress like them, look like them, even approach them and talk to them. But I know that if they were in a movie, they would probably be the main character's love interest. So you can learn what is supposed to be attractive, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily attractive to you. So that's what I mean with subjectivity in regards to attraction. But there is a sort of social objectivity of attraction based on the society you're in and what is culturally valued. Gundam, for example, is something that has giant robots, and sometimes, like the upcoming Gundam series that premieres in October, something that has really cool robots and a really cute girl. Fun. If you think Gundam is cool, an anime girl is cute, or an outfit is cool or cute, that too is attraction. Aesthetic attraction. I put this slide in to specify, especially because we're talking about cuteness and we're talking about the biological underpinnings of it that are very much found in biological youth. I thought it was important to note that when we're talking about cute, especially because a lot of people may use cute as a synonym for hot or as a synonym for attractiveness in general, that I wanted to specify that because cute can be all across the spectrum, and someone may find someone cute and find them sexually attractive, or find something cute and just see it as a thing, if that makes any sense. A reminder to everyone, if someone tells you not to compliment them, respect their wishes. Rawr, yes, very much so. Fly Away Home, the thing you remember. I'm glad the other 90s kids remember Fly Away Home. I would totally love to watch it in July for community night at some point. It's a good movie. Ooh, Witch of Mercury background. Yeah, I'm really actually looking forward to Witch of Mercury. It's going to be a great Gundam series, I hope. It's probably the anime I'm looking most forward to in the fall. Well, that and Made in Abyss. Infantilization. I've only had Drizzle for a day and a half, but if anything happened to Faye, I would totally kill everyone in this room and then myself. Yeah, oftentimes infantilization can be non-consensual and really, really problematic. Infantilization is one of the biggest problems with being cute, regardless if it's cultivated or something that just happens to be what you're slotted into because of the aesthetics you naturally have. A lot of people who are seen as cute can be infantilized, and it can lead to harassment, sexual harassment, but also denial of autonomy. If someone wants to protect you, even though you never asked them to, and aren't seeking it, that can be harassment. The first version of this that you might experience may just be someone being overprotective. And this isn't just experienced in youth. A lot of people say who are autistic, people who are often infantilized or disabled in very many ways, might also be denied their own autonomy and seen as needing to be protected. Also, unfortunately, even though some people may listen to you or be hanging on your every word because you're cute, doesn't necessarily mean they're hanging on your every word because of respect in the words you're saying. And on the flip side, if you're cute or is seen as cute, you can be seen as not smart or not having any ability to speak on a certain subject because you are cute. A very common thing, especially like say in an older version of America, or even today amongst some types of people, may be your job is to sit there and look pretty. You know? And I think that that is very problematic, and I think that it really sucks. And for example, people who may transition to a more feminine attitude, personality, quote unquote personality, or expression, definitely experience this. That in their workplaces, being seen as femme or being seen as cute, they are seen as less capable, as less smart, or as less of an authority on whatever subject, even if they've had years of experience. Actually, often people who are infantilized are quite adept at whatever is their wheelhouse of interest. I used to be good friends with someone who was studying to be a fucking marine biologist, who was cute as shit. She was like 4'11", was a bab, and like, at least when comfortable and talking around people she was comfortable with, like sometimes defaulted to baby talk and definitely wore cute dresses and shit all the time. But unfortunately, in certain situations, saying that she was a fledgling marine biologist got her a lot of skepticism. Very similar to the very much played up for comedy trope in much media and not taken seriously in everyday life of, say, a sex worker or even someone like a streamer or a VTuber saying that they're doing their job to put themselves through college. A lot of people have skepticism at that, and it's like, oh no, you just like all the boons of being seen as cute and pretty and being taken care of. People who are in the sugar baby industry also experience this. I think that also, codependency is a big thing. When I was in one of my older long-term relationships, I very much defaulted into codependency, especially once I started my transition because of the social role that I was expected to fill, especially because of the binary aspects of being feminine and being seen as cute. I saw being helpless and being dependent on someone else, not just in terms of like income, for example, but for protection or looking to them before I should respond to someone talking to me, as validation of my gender. And that was not correct. Like, for example, women's liberation and feminism does not bar you from being cute, does not bar you from someone opening the door for you when you go into a place, does not bar you from being like, oh, well, you should be respected in your own personhood. However, especially if you're used to being taken care of a lot, it can definitely infantilize you and lead to a term referred to as learned helplessness. I forgot the name of the experiment, but outside of like being cute, learned helplessness can happen when you have a sense of helplessness reinforced in you through behaviors. If through all your valiant efforts, you tend to not be able to do for yourself on a consistent basis, you may internalize that you cannot do for yourself. In the experiment that I'm thinking of, there was a dog put in a room with an electrified floor, and if they were put into the room and not shown that there was a part of the room that was not electrified, after a certain amount of time or a certain amount of trials, they would stop seeking to find the part of the room that wasn't electrified, or generally stop reacting to it in a physical way at all, and would generally just resign themselves to their fates. Taking the black pill, doomerism, that sort of thing. Though, if early in the experimental trials, they were shown that there was a non-electrified part of the floor, they would actually continue to seek that part of the floor and go to it and actively look for it in future trials. At least that's how I remember it. People who seek to defend you and infantilize you, especially for being cute, will find a big sense of contentment and even just see themselves as being in their right social group for taking control of a situation or defending you. It's sort of a big deal, especially in the cis-het heteronormative man-woman dichotomy, because a lot of people, especially say in the manosphere, preach that women want to be defended, and so if you want to show your quote-unquote value to women, you should try to defend them, show that you are strong and willing to protect them. That sort of thing. It sucks. Alright, here we go. We're getting into the racism and the fascism and all the bad stuff, so the trigger warning has come to roost. Cuteness and fascism? So, Konrad Lorenz was very much interested in zoology and etymology. Etymology is the science of studying animals. But was, however, drafted into the Wurmschiat. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Or, better known as the United Armed Forces of Germany, and was assigned as a military psychologist tasked with racial studies. He was generally just wanting to study animal behavior, but there was no use for that skill set in the military, at least at the time. So the work that he was tasked with doing, because of his background, was to determine the work ethic of mixed race Germans, trying to see if people who weren't pure Germans worked as hard as people who weren't. Very gross behavior. It's unknown how much of his work was important to the military that he worked for. However, he became a prisoner of war within the first few years of his tour of duty and spent years as a war doctor for the Soviet Union, of which he was the POW of. During this time, he was actually allowed to continue his etymology work, which was like the most important thing to him. His work wasn't of particular interest to either side, however, but it did end up being his life's work. His book Behind the Mirror was one of his most important written works, and the manuscript for it was something that he had on him when he left the Soviet Union after the war had ended, as well as a small bird, a starling. I remember. Yeah, he had a pet starling. He seemed to be, in a way, a very quote-unquote gentle guy, very much more interested in animals than people, at least from what I read in my research. And he did a lot for the fields of etymology and zoology, so much so that he actually won a Nobel Prize for physiology or medicine, which he shared with Nicholas Terbergen and Karl von Frisch. I think that it's great that he was able to live a life after everything went down, because it was not something that he wanted to do. However, I don't think that just because he was drafted into the United Armed Forces of Germany means that he is outside the realm of being criticized for this. Although this doesn't directly have to do with being cute, at least all the work he did throughout his life, I think since I did use the work he did as a backbone for this presentation, it would be remiss of me not to mention his history of fascism. Continued. Lorenz spent most of his time in the military as a POW, but after the war insisted that he was captured much earlier in his military career than he really was, and downplayed his contributions to the Nazis until his membership was made public. He did denounce them, however, later saying, I wrote about the dangers of domesticization, and in order to be understood, I couched my writing in the worst of Nazi terminology. I do not want to extenuate this action. I did, however, believe that some good might come of the new rulers. Practically all of my friends and teachers did so, including my own father, who certainly was a kindly and humane man. None of us as much as suspected that the word selection, when used by these rulers, meant murder. I regret those writings, not so much for the undeniable discredit they reflect on my person, as for their effect of hampering the future recognition of the dangers of domesticization. It's great that he regretted his contributions to the Nazi Party, but I think that it says a lot that he thinks that it is much that he thought he's dead. That he thought it was worse for his work as it was for, the human condition and, ultimately a lot of very harmful and destructive ideologies that are still being played up today. It is regrettable that that was such a thing. And although he did get a lot of accolades in his field years after World War II, I think it's very notable that some of the accolades that he was going to receive were rescinded because of not just his contributions to the Nazi Party, but his outright denial that he was involved until he could not deny it anymore. I think his experiences, especially coming from a very nationalist family, does reflect a lot of what people find as seductive about fascism and doing better for their country, and how a lot of the ideology is couched in the concept of protection and protecting the white race, in preventing white genocide and shit like that. And it is terrible that the further we get away from World War II, the more history seems to repeat itself, and people seem to think that these ideals are okay and that they should be validated in a good faith way. The concept of cuteness was used by the Nazis. In a lot of their propaganda, they use small Aryan children, i.e. blonde hair, blue eyes, and seen as genetically superior, to showcase the type of individuals that were being bred out of existence by interracial marriage and shit like that. Generally, even outside of fascism, protect the women and children is seen as a call to action for a wide number of causes, as a way to convince people to kind of turn off their brains when it comes to the nuances in the ideologies that a lot of people seek to popularize. Cute Aryan children were often invoked in propaganda calling for racial cleansing in the name of protecting idealized children. Invoking cuteness is not always something that people do for their own protection or for an expression of the cuteness inside, per se. Our enemies will continue to use cuteness to convince people to be their allies, in the sense of, you must protect these people. And obviously the flip side of that, at the peril of other people. Even today, similar things are invoked in the name of protecting trans children by denying them the right to transition, or to strip people of their reproductive rights in the name of protecting unborn fetuses, even at the peril of, say, someone with a uterus who, even if they were not a victim of sexual assault, are not in the position or just don't fucking want to raise a child. Seeing the cute and defenseless being, even theoretically, as having more autonomy and more right to life than the person who can get pregnant, is something that is still a problem to this fucking day, and will continuously be used as a way to undercut all the progress the feminists and others have made in the steps toward bodily autonomy, whether that has to do with reproductive rights or trans rights. Also remember, when people, especially trans people, talk about genocide, it's not just throwing a bunch of people into a big room and killing them. It's often forced mass sterilization. It is a big deal. People of color and disabled people have a history of being sterilized for the quote-unquote protection of people that are yet to exist, or generally to weed us out of the gene pool. When people talk about wanting to cure autism, for example, is couched in genocidal rhetoric, because for too many people, having a trans kid, having a disabled kid, having an autistic kid is way worse than having a dead kid, and that is a fucking problem. Idolized cuteness often leads to intense infantilization, or the opposite, contracting a cute subject with a less conventionally attractive subject in order to dehumanize the latter, especially when BIPOC people, disabled people, or neurodivergent people are involved. And I think that a lot of us can be distracted by the aesthetics of cuteness when these things come up, because life isn't necessarily always cute. Although my model and my idealized self that you see in front of you is me, it is the me that I choose to show and that I want to be seen as. But that doesn't mean that someone who sees me on the street should not treat me as a whole human being, or treat me like I want to be treated. As we progress through the cuteness lessons, I want to remind you that no matter how cute you aspire to be or that you achieve, you are still a person at the end of the day, and that you should stand up for yourself and not let people infantilize you non-consensually, or fall into infantilizing and forced helplessness rhetoric. I think it's very important to remember that you can be cute and also be assertive, that you can be cute and also be a radical leftist, that you can be cute and also not take any fucking shit. Alright? Alright. Conclusions and questions. Now the floor is open to any questions you may have. Thank you for your time. And for next week, the lesson will be finding your own cute. What are the different kinds of cute, and which are right for you? Whew. Okay, that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. It was still hard. And it was still emotional, and I'm still sweating bullets, but that was quite fun. Even the part that I was yelling and kicking and screaming, my little feeties. And to be completely honest, I think that the juxtaposition of a cute baby dragon talking about the sort of stuff that we tend to talk about workers' rights, about BIPOC rights, disabled rights, and stuff like that, goes down a whole lot easier, especially when we talk about the type of shit that we're dealing with. And I know that a lot of people are struggling with the overturning of Roe v. Wade in America right now, and how bad fascism has seeped into American electoralism and politics. And some people, even more than ever, are seeking to depoliticize the content that they seek for comfort, though we will continue to try to provide both comfort and education, and to cultivate a space where people can feel free to talk about the things that concern them when it comes to being seen as a person, to being humanized, or the struggle with society or certain people in society trying to dehumanize you. You should have a space to be yourself, but also be as quote unquote political as society makes you. Whew. Am I cute? I find you quite cute, Lillian. But, I mean, of course, that can be seen as subjective. I think something you said recently when we were talking was, is cuteness and dorkiness similar, or is one akin to the other? And I think very much so. The way you rattle off about your interests is quite cute. I think that there's totally a, what's the word? I think there's a meme about it, about how cute it is to watch someone, especially an autistic person, go on and on and on about their special interests very enthusiastically. Yeah. Can I go to the potty? Yes, you may go to the potty. Is my unstoppable consumption, my unstoppable compulsion, is my unstoppable compulsion to hide my thoughts and fears and constant jokes a part of trying to be cute slash likable because I don't want the hurt for standing up for myself instead? It can be cute, but not all forms of cuteness should be desired, I don't think. I think that although it is quote unquote cute to avoid conflict, and I very often avoid conflict myself, I think it's important to stand up for yourself in certain situations, or if you do not have it in you, to at least be willing to separate yourself from situations that hurt you if you feel like you cannot advocate for yourself. And of course, I was talking about the helplessness part of being cute and how some people may flock to help you or protect you, but even though learned helplessness and just infantilization is a thing, I don't think it's a bad thing to rely on others and ask for help in certain ways, especially if you can't advocate for yourself. I think that you should try to find a happy medium. And I know that you won't always be able to fight against your compulsion to be seen as agreeable, but I think you should at least try. And just to call back to it, so you wrote down etymologist, but Lorenz was an theologist. I'm gonna be a smartass and say, no, I did not know that. If I had known that, then it wouldn't have been written that way? Yeah, no. And these are my sources. After the VOD post, I will put these sources in the description for this YouTube video, as well as the edited version of the YouTube video down below. Cuteness, physical attractiveness, the hawk goose effect, and the Conrad Lorenz Wikipedia pages. Also, I'm just bad at pronouncing and spelling things, just so you know. Sometimes I do get sensitive about it. I hope I didn't scare you at all by being a smartass. But, you know, my feelings get hurt a lot. Especially because it's hard for me to spell things, so I sometimes default to whatever is more easy word to spell that might be similar. And of course, I don't have an editor to check over all my work, so what you see is what you get. So yeah. That was Cuteness Class 1. I was asked earlier if I had any homework to give. I would say if I was going to assign any homework, I would say just to practice your vocal training and to try to remember about the infantilization aspect, and that cuteness does not have to come at the cost of agency. I think that's some easy homework. In general, I'll say this to you, but this is a general thing. Especially if I can't pay a person, I'm not gonna like jump up at the prospect of someone doing work for me, especially extensive work for me, especially when it comes to stuff that requires file sharing, because our video projects are very, very big, and will also take someone being well versed in the types of tools that we use, right? So it's not always easy and applicable, and can sometimes take even more spoons for me to seek help in a casual sense, which is why when we get the income to be able to consistently pay for an editor, a video editor specifically, we probably will. So that's why we don't usually take up free offers from our friends and loved ones about video editing for us. We've had many offers from people, especially in the sense that, you know, work requires labor, and I would love to at the very least be able to trade labor for labor. There's very few things that I can offer most of the people that would seek to help us with our professional work, that we could give something that they would want in return. Yeah. Whew. That's a long time to go without sounds, or to go without music. How long have I been streaming? Oh, not that long. So that presentation was about an hour, right? Yeah. Okay. That wasn't too bad, actually. Whew. I hope that people got something out of this work. And if you are watching the VOD, whether edited or not, thank you for watching. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to support our work and make it a little bit easier for us to live and get work done faster and easier, feel free to support us on Ko-fi or Patreon. Thanks for watching.